Hi everybody, welcome. My name is Paula Marie Kilgarriff. I am the Strategic Account Manager at Altada Technology Solutions, and I'm welcoming you guys tonight to our webinar and information evening of the Alsessor AI program from Tangent at Trinity College Dublin and Altada Technology Solutions. So as you guys know, that we recently have a AI Accelerator call out to attract early stage startup AI companies to participate in our accelerator program. So we're looking for people in fintech, short tech, prop tech, legal tech to join our accelerator program. So tonight we're very lucky to have all our panelists with us tonight, and they're going to explain to us different parts of the program and how you will be able to get involved. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists tonight. We have Allan Beechinor, CEO and co-founder of Altada. Then we have Niamh Parker, co-founder of Altada as well. Finnegan, CEO of Trinity Tangent's Workspace at Trinity College Dublin. We've got Brian McElligott, IP firm manager at Mason Hayes and Curran. Stijn, Christiaens, co-founder and CTO of Collibra. Jason Pinston from Rocktop, or financial service sponsor. And Ivan Adrel, creative strategy director at Granite, or marketing sponsor. So without further ado, I'll head you over to Allan. Allan, perhaps you can introduce us to the program and tell us a little bit about yourself. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Good evening and good morning, I guess, and good afternoon for people that are dialing in from far afield. So nice to meet you all. I'm Allan Beechinor, CEO and co-founder of Altada, as Paula mentioned. And very much looking forward to hearing any of your questions and queries relating to the Alsessor. And thank you so much for all of our panelists and mentors for joining this evening.
And we'll hear from Ken.
Good evening, everybody. Delighted to be here this evening. This is the first webinar and first kind of like official duty we've had with this accelerator. So excited to be here. Tangent, I'm the CEO of Tangent, which is Trinity College's Ideas Workspace. So we provide educational programs and innovation and entrepreneurship across multiple sectors and domains. And we also provide multiple accelerators as well. So this is the latest one in our portfolio of accelerators. We run accelerators in digital health validation and climate entrepreneurship. And now we will be running this, and delighted to be partnering with Altada and Co on this accelerator.
Awesome. And we'll hear from Niamh Parker, co-founder.
Hi everyone, I'm Niamh. I'm co-founder of Altada, and I'm also the CEO of Beacon AI, our privacy company also. So I'm delighted that you could all join us here tonight and meet our great sponsors and resident mentors, and looking forward to taking you through any questions you have about whether this is the right accelerator for you.
Fantastic. And is Brian McElligott? Brian is joining us, or?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks very much,
Hi,
Paula.
Brian.
Thank you very much. We're absolutely delighted in Mason Hayes and Curran to be part of the accelerator, excuse me. And we're really looking forward to engaging with all of the companies coming up through the accelerator, and I suppose guiding and bringing them along the process of understanding the really, really vital and valuable assets they are creating while they're in the accelerator, and giving some understanding as to how to protect and manage those assets. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, and now we'll hear from Stijn Christiaens, co-founder of Collibra.
Hey, this is Stijn. Can you hear me okay? All right. Thanks for the confirmation. So Stijn from Collibra. I think you probably all know how visible and important AI is, and you probably all know how crucial data is in there. And I would add, right now, I think there's almost nothing more important than entrepreneurship, right? Our whole, in a way, economic world is turned upside down or shuffled around a little bit. And that's the perfect time to come up with new things, which requires you to do this. And I think an accelerator program, at least for Collibra, from our viewpoint, like more than 12 years ago, these things can really help you get started, or if you're already started, help fast track you a little bit. So I hope the same applies to you.
Fantastic. And now we'll hear from Ivan. Ivan.
Hi everyone, Ivan from Connector by Granite. Really excited to be part of this project. I'm here to help you guys build brands and grow market share. There's a missing some circles that if you build a great project, that's all you need to do, build and they will come. And you can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have a strategy to spread your story, it isn't really going very far. So I'm really excited to be part of this.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, so we're going to crack on with a couple of questions. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today and also everybody who sent in the messages and questions. So firstly, Allan, so you're the driving force behind the Alsessor AI program. Can you give us, where did the dream come from? How was it initiated?
I don't know if I'd put myself in the driver. I'm very much a passenger at this stage. I'd say there's a full team driving, so I can't take credit for that. I guess talking to the point that Ken and I discussed earlier, I'll say tongue in cheek, there was a dream that was Ireland as the AI island, and this was an idea that was very much spawned by Ken and his colleagues in, I guess, early 2015, Ken, right? And I was happy to get involved in that initiative, and that initiative was to address the growing demand for AI and the growing demand for talent and the growing demand for innovation within Ireland. So we, thought about constructing a team of, let's call it, domain experts from different domains relating to technology, education, commercial, and one of the outputs of that process, which was creation of a national masters in AI that's been delivered by the University of Limerick. Another spin-off from that was how do we assist the ever-growing SME sector, which is small to medium enterprise within the country, to pivot to innovation and to address technology that's coming down the track, which is obviously AI is becoming and fast becoming an adopted technology and an adopted solution. So one of the areas that we looked upon was the assistance that can be provided to companies needs to, pivot alongside that, right? It's not the traditional methods of mentorship and commercial advice and legal advice, even talking to Brian McElligott's point earlier, how do you even protect AI from an IP perspective, right? Understanding the caveats and, the risks associated with that. So we're here to put our arms around the companies that are trying to innovate and trying to create opportunities for themselves and help them to navigate through, what is now seen as a different way of doing business, right? You have to look at technology, you have to identify use cases, you have to understand, is it a product, is it a platform? And then addressing your go-to-market strategy is not easy, right? Because AI is completely horizontal. There is no set standard, there is no platform that you just deploy. This is very much creation. So we've gone back to the renaissance of technology, right? It's now an it's an art form to create a technology that is AI.
Okay, thanks for that, Allan. So the next question from our viewers is to Niamh. So Niamh, can you let us know if there's any ideal stage of a startup journey for an applicant, or can you explain a few scenarios? So where do startups start this whole journey to be part of this accelerator?
Well, I suppose, Paula, initially the call out was for early stage startups that have a proof of concept or close to a minimal viable product. And a lot of the applications that we've come in, companies are further ahead than that. So we've had a lot of questions about, are we too far ahead? Are we too early? We've got some early, I suppose, market validation is probably a good word, where, you might have your first customer who's saying, yeah, if you build this, I will use it, and have some kind of just some early success really with your methodology and stuff like that. But because we have a talent partner that can't be with us tonight actually as well, Aldas, involved with us, so there's going to be a great opportunity with Altada to actually get your models and your minimal viable product created on the Altada's own proprietary platform, right? So that would say if you've got big dreams, you're bold, you're brave, you're not afraid, and you've got resilience. We want to invest in amazing founders. You can have the best idea in the world, and you might never succeed. So what I would say to people is, and it's very funny because I've had interactions with guys and girls, and the guys that have an idea are replying, and some of the girls think that, you know, they're too early. So I think there's definitely a confidence, you know, a big delta between the confidence in the female and the male founders. So we're determined, guys, to have a 50-50 cohort in January. So I would encourage both male and female founders with an amazing idea, some early market validation. So that would be that, you know, you've maybe done, you know, a course in this, or that you've done some early work. And then of course, for the companies that are ready to scale out and to export, we welcome applications from you guys as well, because you've done the hard, you know, the hard part to get to this stage. And we want to make sure that we can help you to scale and export your product or service also. So I'd say from both ends of the scale, Paula.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Niamh. Okay, so our next question is for Ken. So Ken, tell us a bit more about the accelerator. It sounds very cutting edge, the program, and would you be fair to say that there are very few AI focused accelerators worldwide? So are you guys the first? That's really my question.
I can't say that we're the first, but we're one of the first. Let's put it like that. So yeah, look, from a Tangent perspective, as I mentioned at the start, we're delighted to be partnering in delivering this accelerator with everybody involved. Tangent, we've, as I mentioned, deliver existing accelerators. So we're taking our model in terms of the accelerators we deliver already and applying it to this disruptive technology, so artificial intelligence. The great thing about, I guess, being based in a 428-year-old university is that we have wonderful experts to leverage from the university as well. So the leading artificial intelligence research centre is based in Trinity, well, based in a few academic institutions across Ireland. One of its offices is in Trinity, the ADAPT Research Centre. So we'll be leveraging expertise and capability from the guys in there. We also have a mentor. One of our initially identified mentors is Professor Linda Hogan. She's a professor of ecumenics, so she'll be joining the group for advising on ethics in artificial intelligence from the start. So she's worked in this area before and is a wealth of information. In terms of being first, yeah, I guess one of the first. What was your other question for me? There was a few parts to that question. Oh,
I'll just have a look. Yeah, tell us a little bit about the program. It's very cutting edge. It's very new. And my second question was, can you give us some examples of other companies or famous companies that would have come from the accelerator programs at Trinity?
Yeah, it is. We've got great examples. You know, so we run probably one of Europe's most famous student accelerator called Launchbox. It's been running in Trinity for 7 years, but now its home is in Tangent. The first company the first student group that won Launchbox is a famous company called Food Cloud. So Food Cloud take unused food in supermarkets and redistribute it to people in need, essentially, and they've done a massively successful job in that. They distribute one meal every 2 seconds to people in need currently and scaling up their operation. So Isolde Ward, who's the founder, she was a student in Trinity back in 2013 and has successfully created that organization. A recent company that we're very proud of as well is an AI company that was established in 2014 as well. Artomatics is its name. It was actually acquired by a Silicon Valley company earlier this year for, I think it was 60 million euros, and that was a student entrepreneurship, student enterprise as well. So I think we've got great kind of like institutional knowledge and leverage within Trinity, obviously, good track record. So we're looking forward to working on this accelerator and creating the next wave of who knows, unicorns.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, guys, just a reminder to anyone who wants to submit any questions. I can see them here on the screen. So jump in your questions there. We'll have a few more and we'll continue on. Okay, thanks a million for that, Ken. So let me see. I have a question now for Brian. So Brian, are you there? Yeah, Brian. All right. So IP is the name of the game in tech. Do you feel that startups are missing a beat with their IP knowledge, and could there be more done to help them understand that they need to protect their IP at an early stage?
Absolutely, and you know what? It's a matter of education. and down through the years working with numerous startups and fast-growing companies, and even, you know, a few that have been through a few rounds of investment, we've seen trends in, you know, the typical things that go wrong or are left behind. And many of these can be addressed with a little bit of education, because I suppose that there's the understanding, which is correct to an extent, that procuring protection for some of your intellectual assets, like your idea or what it is that your machine is doing, and can you protect it, and can you get a patent, or must you rely on trade secrets? There's a lot of kind of basic 101 type knowledge that can be dispensed. And once those key points are taken on board, I mean, we would not expect people to be, you know, experts in the area, but I think that there's, you know, there's certain maybe 10 points that can be delivered and can be understood, which, when understood, will act as like triggers. When someone does something, they go, oh, should I do something here? And then they have the ability to take advice at the right time. Now, you know, let's just say, for instance, it's triggering a note in someone's head to go and take advice with regard to filing a patent. Filing patents is an expensive journey, but at the point where you are thinking about filing patents, you are probably at the point where you're getting investment anyway. So you can go out and look to have that as part of your investment strategy. It's more understanding the key little inflection points in the journey of growing your intellectual asset that will allow you to make the right decisions, or to pause and ask for advice at that time, and so as not to take the wrong decision and maybe set yourself back, or perhaps maybe do something silly and maybe publish something that you shouldn't publish and destroy novelty in a patent. So there's definitely, you know, kind of a 101 type IP strategy that can be delivered. And as I said, you would not expect people to be experts, but they could gain enough knowledge to be able to keep the ship on a steady course.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, so we have one for Stijn. So Stijn, you're the data king. We acknowledged that you plan to share your knowledge with the Alsessor participants on the importance of data governance. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how important it is?
Hey, hi, can you hear me okay? Yeah, thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah, data king, I don't know. If data would ever have a king, I'd hope she would be a queen. But anyways,
You say print.
yeah, I think if when it comes to AI, there's people who say that the algorithms will be commoditized and whatnot, but in the end, no matter how smart your model is or how expensive it is to get the model, it's nothing without the data, right? And we also know that those models operate on trying to find certain patterns in the data. So obviously, if the data is wrong, is not representative or what have you, the outcomes are also likely to be not representative. And I always give the following metaphor. So we as human beings, when it comes to decision making, we also use data. Somebody prepares some data for us and puts it in a beautiful dashboard, Tableau or Power BI or something else. And then we look at it and we say, okay, that bar looks higher than this bar, so I'm going to make that decision. And maybe you do that once, I don't know, an hour or a day or so. But the same thing in an AI, a robot, let's say, does the same thing, except they don't do it once a day or once an hour, but they do it thousands of times per second. Right? So if a human being makes a wrong decision or a biased or what have you decision on the basis of data, that's not great, but it's like 1,000 times worse when an AI does it in an automated fashion, right? So it's like shooting yourself in the foot with a gun or with a machine gun. So when it comes to AI, it's really important, and I think there's massive opportunity ahead, by the way, to put some controls around it, right? And to whether it's on the data level or on the model level, the output level, or the infrastructure level, or the application level, there's great opportunity ahead to to bring entrepreneurship, to bring new technology, to bring new products in the context of AI, to have AI do quote unquote the right thing.
So we know you're great at finding supportive investors and funding partners. Tell us about exporting to the US market.
So we started our company in Brussels as a spin-off, not from the wonderful Trinity, but from what we call in Belgium the Vrije Universiteit Brussels, translated to the Free University of Brussels. But if you translate that back to Flemish, the Free University of Brussels or French, it's like two different universities, just to be very clear. And in Belgium, we're not the biggest country, maybe 10 or 11 million people. I don't know how many in Ireland necessarily, but obviously it's clear that when it comes to stuff like this, or stuff like what we did, the world is your oyster, right? The world is your market, depending on your go-to-market strategy. And when you have a global market, it's important to think about speed, like how fast can you capture how big a market? And the challenge, I think, in the European market is that it's very fragmented. So €1 or $1 you spend, you're gonna have to figure out, am I gonna translate this into English or Irish or French, right? So, like how it's not about the language necessarily only, but about the different cultures and then how each of those markets is just a little bit different from the others. So your dollar sort of has to be split up. Whereas in North America, your dollar has one more unified market. And when you're going for a global market, capturing the biggest market the fastest gives you the fastest or largest cash flow that can help you, quote unquote, conquer the other parts of the market. So depending on your strategy, depending on your market, you'll have to choose, how do I go to the biggest market in my space? How do I do that? How do I achieve that with the resources that I've had? From experience, I can tell you it made a huge difference in our history as a company for us to first prospect into that market and then actually land and set up an office and build out our business in that market. It's not easy, but depending on what you're trying to achieve, it is very important.
Great, thanks for that. And so we have a message from our Q&A. How do you, this is for Ken, how do you foresee AI changing the industry? Ken.
That's a very broad question. I was on a podcast earlier on with Allan and Niamh, and we were talking about let's go back 100 years ago and to the manufacturer that had never come across, probably longer than 100 years ago, but the manufacturer that never come across electricity, whatever they might be manufacturing, you introduce electricity into their facility, it changes everything. It changes the way they work, it changes their product, service, etc. I guess it's going to be, artificial intelligence is going to be transformative for many industries. I think there's industries that can adapt and transform faster than others. I'm sure there's other people on the call that probably have deeper insights. From a tangent perspective, we're kind of a sector agnostic at times. What we tend to do is, and I see one of the other questions coming in, so I can answer that at the same time. We don't focus in on the technology per se. We have Allan here, who's one of the smartest people in the country when it comes to artificial intelligence. Stijn has a great reputation in artificial intelligence technology as well. So tangents bring together and connect the dots in terms of bringing the best minds from across academia and industry together into one place where the companies, the SMEs, the startups that we're working with can benefit from this intellectual capital, I guess, from across not just Ireland, not just Trinity, but obviously from the world.
That's great. And also that reminds me, Niamh, as well, women in AI. Can you tell us a little bit about that? We know there's a big movement in Ireland now about a lot of females are signing up for data science roles and participating in AI projects. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I think there's definitely more participation and more groups and movements, and especially women in ethics and AI as well. And I guess, it comes down to the bias argument that Stijn mentioned earlier as well, that, we've been hearing this argument a lot, but, there's lots of programs in place to overcome this as well. And I think, you know, having more women involved in the creation of the AI and the models, that, you know, it just kind of helps balances things out a lot. It's very creative, as Allan said. It's more like an artist form, you know, creating these AI models, and it is very creative. So it is attracting a lot of female participation as well on the programs. Now, Allan did say that there was a little bit of drop off during COVID with the attendance on the female program, which again is something that's very annoying as, you know, a mom of 3 daughters, is that there was more drop off on the female side. So that's why I really would encourage the female founders thinking of applying to, you know, you will be supported on the program as much as we can to get you to balance your family life as well. So yeah, go for it, ladies.
I think it's very important now they're entering into a new era of automation to have a more balanced society. We hear about machine learning, how sometimes this machine learning can be biased. It doesn't have a real representation or an equal representation of society. So yeah, I definitely think welcoming women and creating a more inclusive and diverse approach to building AI is going to be an absolutely essential in the future. All right, so we have a question for Ivan. Hi, Ivan. So our question is, can you share with the audience the importance of a marketing and the creative when you're building or commercializing your technology? So how important is marketing and the creative side of the business to create new technology and bring it into commercialization?
I think marketing is to be considered more just promotions, but it's much more than that. Like without marketing, a startup can get customers organically, but not at the pace to become a mature company or a unicorn. So if you don't market the technology, you're not going to reach the audience. If you don't reach the audience, you're not going to get customers. If you don't have the customers coming in, you're not going to be successful. And I think creativity plays a huge role in adding some spice and making people guesses and understand and love your technology and the products you're posting out there.
Okay, great. Okay, so Niamh, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about the accelerator and what's going to happen in the 5 months and some information about it. Some of our viewers are asking there.
Yeah, there's lots of questions. I was just saying that there's lots of extra questions coming in from all the great companies here, guys. So yeah, so someone's saying, is it going to be, you know, hybrid? Is it going to be remote? Is it going to be face-to-face? We are like determined to meet up as many times as we can. Public health policies will dictate what we can do. Kickoff is around mid-January, and we will be finishing up the last week in May, I think just around maybe probably the June weekend. There'll be an investor day, demo day. We're also going to do a live, it's really, they call them, they're not scrums, they're sprints, right? So we'll be allocating mentors, AI mentors, business mentors to companies, and streaming a lot of it live as well to just get the message out there about what we're doing. What is the time commitment? I believe it's 1 day a week. We have a tentative schedule that we can share with everybody after the call, which shows when you have your one-to-one mentoring. What Ken was saying earlier is that we'll be following, I know, like the academic, and you know, when you start off and you're so far ahead, but somebody asks you to come back to your business model canvas, and like, you know, we're all like, oh God, here we go again. Like, I'm already trying to solve all the world's problems, but you have to start somewhere. And that's why we're hoping to accept between 10 and 12 people on this program, companies. And by the end of it, it's a 3-phase approach that Tangent have, and it works really successfully for them. So we're following that Tangent methodology of starting with 12 companies, and then in the final stages will be the last month, guys, will be like the whole lot of all the mentors, the program, focusing on the final 3 companies. Then that will ultimately win the prize of 250,000 investment from Oyster Haven Ventures and our sponsor in Rocktop Partners also. Now, we have had obviously huge support from Enterprise Ireland as well this week on the program. That Ken was giving us an update today, and Allan was speaking with them yesterday, and they will 100% be following that investment in match funding also. So it's an opportunity to get up to 500,000, guys, by next June for the companies that are really committed and really, really want to export their solution or product to new places, new customers. And I think a really important thing as well for us is that the first customer. I don't know, Stijn, do you have experience? Like, can you tell us a little bit about you guys getting your first customer? Like, how important that is for a startup for the next part of your iteration and where you go, and because I think that was very important for us as well. So if you could share your experience, that would be great.
Happy to. With us, the customers were just waiting outside of our programmers' cubicles until the product was ready. They were queuing up and saying, "When can I get it? When can I get it?" If you think that is not good.
Great.
So our first customers were very important to us, as of course was our first version of the product. But I always say that in the early years, in the early phases of the beginning, you don't want to overcommit on setting up like a sales organization. At the same time, you don't want to overcommit on setting up a product organization, right? I think you want to make sure that you have enough to sell. Like you want to, at a minimum, be able to sell the idea, right? Like talk to a few people. You don't need a lot of customers in the beginning, just a handful, 3 to 5. But you need somebody who has some kind of skin in the game that wants to test whatever is there of your product, right? They have to have that skin in the game, because otherwise their feedback is just like, oh, that's awesome. But they have nothing to lose by saying it either. And then the product just has to, you're selling an idea through a slide maybe, but you have to be able to back it up. Let's say one of those people that you're talking to says, oh, I want to try it. There has to be something to try as well, right? So you want to have like a little bit of both going on. I'm joking, right? But I'm saying if you're one person, you're on the phone with somebody trying to sell, while at the same time you're coding up your model, for example. So those first customers are important to give you that feedback, to help give you that early stage direction. Like, is my technology going in the right way, and is there value, and can I make a guess about how big that value is? But at some point in time, you want to, of course, move beyond that feedback stage of just a handful of customers, because you have to then, okay, now I have 3 customers or 5, pick a number. But now you have to figure out, how do I bring that to 50? Right? Because the 50 customers are going to want a different kind of product than maybe the first 3. And you want to make sure that you're factoring in that scale as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. So just from our audience, from Matt, what are the recent examples when an awesome idea didn't get the right execution to succeed? So it sounds like a sharing, when you had an awesome idea, but you didn't get the right nurturing or guidance to succeed. So have you had this in your lifetime, guys, in your professional lifetime? Anyone want to share?
Every entrepreneur, I think, will have had that in their lifetime.
For sure.
97% of the time.
We call them the drawer of broken dreams, you know, or that idea that just didn't quite, you know, make it. But yeah, there is, like, Allan, you could probably talk to that really.
I mean, I guess it's a broad question, right? But if you talk specifically to the topic that we're going to address in the accelerator, which is AI, I mean, you know, we spoke about this earlier, guys, on a podcast, but you know, 97% of AI solutions don't get out of the laboratory, right? It's POC, and you know, from production perspective, they just don't make the cut. You know, either it's scale, or you know, the technology wasn't robust enough, or there's the talent gap, there's a no user. As talking to Stijn's point, you know, you don't have that 6 to 7 early adopter clients that are going to support you get to the next stage. You just end up in kind of the ether of broken drawer dreams, right? I can talk to a few kind of examples from our own perspective. I mean, we as a company, you know, we had to pivot into different use cases. That was it. You know, you start out with a different, you know, plan. You can't let perfect be the enemy of good, especially when it comes to AI. So, you know, definitely you need to look at that iteration of creating prototypes. Don't get yourself pigeonholed into one specific area. You know, find out, be kind of brave, be bold, sample, and you know, continue to iterate. And if you don't, if it's not working, change or die. You know, that's the kind of the context that I would put that answer in. You know.
Can I jump in there as well? Like, just anybody that's watching and that is interested, like, we talk about our mentors. As I said, we've got some of the best minds from nationally, internationally mentoring. We've got advisors, experts, etc. But you also could consider your peers on the accelerator as well. There's no better support group for a struggling entrepreneur than another struggling entrepreneur, to get them through the hard times and to learn from the challenges that they've already had. As Allan said, 97% of product, services, ideas probably don't come to fruition. Like one thing that I really love about Tangent and the energy in Tangent, the accelerators that we run, is this idea of everybody leaning on everybody kind of like bringing everybody on that journey. They all know the scars, they all can tell their tales and stories and learn from each other. So it's a wonderful community. It's a wonderful opportunity to nurture your idea, but also have the support of this big community with kind of a great reward at the end of the journey for those that get there, you know.
That's great. Okay, guys. So I have another, Niamh, we know you're a big advocate of privacy by design. Will this feature on the program as well?
So yeah, that's the biggest buzzword now being thrown around to anyone that's involved in data projects. Oh, we have privacy by design. So what I would say is that, yes, it's hugely important. Actually, privacy was Altada's very first use case when we started out in 2017. So we started with trying to figure out what the upcoming GDPR was coming out. So we were figuring out how would you respond to a DSAR, and then by serendipity, I suppose, Allan, you kind of managed to break everything. And again, the all importance of getting that first customer that was really driven for a global company to solve the privacy issue for them internally. So yes, it's very important to us. And again, any kind of data sets that you're operating with, and it's great that, you know, artificial intelligence is in the GDPR legislation. So you have to be, you know, very transparent about what you're doing with data. You have to be transparent about automated decision making. You have to have your processor agreements in place, you know, the data controller stuff. So, you know, you have to do the right thing. And it doesn't matter if you're servicing, you know, we're dealing a lot with US data, but we still have to be completely compliant under GDPR. And I suppose, Stijn, you're a big advocate for privacy, and what you do for Collibra is, you know, they're head of everything to do with data privacy, really. You know, what's your feeling around startup and technology companies around privacy at the moment? What do you feel the landscape is like post-COVID?
Privacy has two sides to it. One is the regulatory side, and the other is where companies are right now. And I think the regulatory side, from our history, some companies look at it as annoying or another regulation to comply to, but from our history, it can also be a business driver. At some point in time in Collibra's history, there was a regulation for banks around data that became very important to grow our business at that moment in time. And I think privacy can have similar effects. There's plenty of regulations to choose from, and it's important enough. We've seen numerous studies that show, as a consumer, people actually care about, you know, the companies that I'm buying something from. How are they doing? What are they doing with my data? You know, how are they protecting it? Because if it fails, it's like 70% of people blame the company that had the data leaked. So I think there's a lot of, if you're a startup right now, there's a lot of opportunity in that whole space. And that can go quite wide, right? Because you have, right now, for example, there are problems in privacy that you can say, okay, we can solve them, but how could we solve them differently? For example, if you take homomorphic algorithms or other techniques, they allow you to run an AI model and still discover patterns in the original data, while the data is completely privacy safe. It's completely encrypted or morphed in some way, or generated data has been injected into it, or what have you. So you're still getting the same insights over your whole population, but you're not risking anybody's individual privacy anymore. And similarly, you have the whole decentralized web movement happening right now. And that's like the early days of the WWW, the original web, right? So where everything was a little bit weird and strange technology, and everybody was putting up their own website in HTML and having like flashing banners on there. The same thing is happening right now with the decentralized web, which is a whole new way of dealing with data, where the data is no longer in some platform's database that they control, but rather the data is in the network. And individuals have a lot more control whether they want to share the key to have the company unlock that data, but also revoke the key just as well. So these are just two dimensions to the opportunity that privacy has created for entrepreneurs right now, I think.
Absolutely. So privacy and design should be done in tangent in a modern world, that's for sure. And that's something that at Altada are very, very conscious of. I often like to describe ourselves as little tech with a big conscience. Okay, so we have another, so guys, thanks a million for your questions in the group there. I have another one from a guy called John. John wants to know and it's for Brian. So he wants to know what kind of things is he going to learn about in IP from Brian McElligott. Yeah, so what are they going to learn in terms of IP in the program?
Yeah, I suppose that the first thing to note is that everybody who is on the accelerator is driving towards the creation of a business, which is then underpinned by whatever it is, the algorithms, the software overlaying that, or the data that's behind it. All of these intellectual assets that are being developed and built on and derived, they're all protected by what's known as intellectual property rights. So you're going to need a basic understanding of what those rights are in order to be able to understand, one, how you're going to protect things once they're created, and two, after that, how do you exploit the assets? And there's, I suppose, a couple of key points that actually kind of get you up a few steps on the ladder of understanding these. And it's to understand, first of all, that intellectual assets are created by human beings. So whenever you consider what it is you've created and how you want to protect it, you begin with who created it, and then you ask yourself the question, was that individual acting on their own, or were they an employee? Because the law treats those two individuals differently. If they're an employee, which probably just won't be the case in the accelerator because we're all just going in as founders. If you're acting as an employee, there's an assumption that the employee's company owns their intellectual output. Otherwise, founders, and this comes up so much in investment rounds, is a founder who creates intellectual property, piece of code, tweaks an algorithm, introduces data. They are the owner of the output. So inevitably what we see in multiple transactions, investments or whatever, is somebody missing a trick and assuming that because their intention is that the business, in inverted commas, will own the IP, is sufficient for the business to own the IP is just simply not correct. There always needs to be a written agreement, whether it's a consultancy agreement or an IP assignment, to ensure that the IP gets put into the company. And you're going to ask yourself, well, yeah, sure, listen, we can just do that anytime. And it's correct, you can absolutely do that. And there are many things on the creation of these assets and that journey that can be corrected. The trouble comes along, though, when someone has created something on the assumption that another person owns it, and that person, let's say, is a company. And at the same time, they go to their first customer and they license the tech to their customer in return, obviously, for the cash to invest in their business. The customer probably genuinely is taking it on face value that they're getting a license of the tech, but it may turn out that the tech is all resting with the founder or a group of founders, and therefore the company had no power to actually grant the license in the first place. So it was little steps like this that we can bring you through on the accelerator and just educate you about those big points I was talking about earlier. It doesn't need to be incredibly, detailed assessments of patent law around novelty or searches, etc. I would always come at it from the perspective of look at yourself as the human being creating the intellectual assets of your company and track the progress of those assets. Where do they go? Because that is what investors look for. Investors, we act for investors all the time, and they are ruthless in the analysis that they will do to find out where do the assets lie. because, you know, make no mistake, the assets of an AI company are its management and the intellectual output produced by those guys or girls who are more than likely the founders in the first place. So it's, I suppose, to educate you on the creation of assets, how to track them, how to learn a few techniques to basically at least understand as to where to put them. And after that, then the next steps will be understanding how to protect them. So there's a lot that can be learned and a lot that can be taught without delving into complex legal processes.
That's great. Okay, so we have another few questions. Is there a fixed equity stake for the 250,000 for the winner of the program? So who wants to answer that? Allan?
Yeah, guys, I think that will be done on the valuation at the time, because, you know, by the time they come through the accelerator, the valuation might be very different from the valuation that they currently have. So that would have to be assessed at the time that the investment is made. So it's not fixed, no. It's open for negotiation, like every good investment round.
Good stuff. Okay, is there a certain level of understanding / experience towards artificial intelligence required by the participants in order to qualify? So is there a certain level of understanding to qualify?
I can take that if you want, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the essence of the companies that are coming in, guys, would be at that kind of MVP or prototype stage and have an idea as to what they're trying to develop. So, you know, we would expect to see some kind of level of understanding how it's going to be applied. And then, you know, because we will have quite a supportive mentor team available of technologists, commercial driven and business driven, we can then identify, you know, what is the technology, what's the application of it, is it correct? And then, you know, there will be an element of matchmaking. There is, you know, a bunch of technologists that would be quite, you know, known to us that could assist with that process in different streams and verticals, depending on what you're looking at. But we would expect you to kind of have an understanding as to how you're going to apply AI to the use case at a minimum.
Yeah, so another question. Can one founder of the company be representative during the program, or are all its founders required to attend the weekly meetings? So,
Ken, do you want to take that?
Sure. Look, we encourage as many people that have that are invested in the organization to participate, like founders, CEOs, etc. There's a question there as well. Given COVID times, what physical form will this program take? So we have online all of our accelerators and all of our education programs in Tangent since the pandemic began. This will more than likely take place online, but if we can, we really would like to host face-to-face activities in Tangent. So the first question, to get value from it, I'd definitely, as many people, founders of the organization, participate as possible. Yes, definitely have the same person attending each week at a minimum,
Ken, could I expand on that? I mean, it's, you know, having come through that process myself, guys, you know, I have been and continue to be that soldier, right? And what I would suggest is, you know, the champion, there's always a champion and there's always supporters of the business. So to have this accelerator as a value add or an impact to your business, I'd strongly suggest that at minimum the driver of the business, the you know, the CEO or one of the founding members would participate. But I think if it's treated as a collaborative support to your company, the key stakeholders of the business would be fundamental to get the value at the other end. And remember, this is, you know, frankly, guys, you know, as somebody that's a co-founder, this is going to be, you know, a competitive outcome, right? You know, we're not saying that the companies that are coming into the court are going to be competing against each other, but, you know, at the end of this, there is somebody who's going to end up with getting support as a follow-up, you know. So it depends on, it's back to the old saying, you know, you get out of it what you put into it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. I have another question here from Patrick. Does the program cover producing code and AI algorithms that comply with international standards by the various regulatory bodies in the med tech space?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can take that. Sorry, guys, I kind of jumped in there, but I mean, from my perspective, and maybe Brian can talk to this point also, from a technologist, I mean, guys, it's ethical, trustworthy AI, it's privacy by design, it's falling in line with, how you're going to develop a production system or platform, right? And to do that, of course, you need to comply with, the regulations that are in place within that sector. So the short answer to that is absolutely.
Yeah, and I think then from like the legal perspective, it's difficult, and I don't recommend that massive analysis be put into products at the early stage when it comes to, let's say, is it a medical device or is it a piece of software? Because it comes up so much these days with regard to like consumer wellness products like your Fitbits or your Apple Watches. Is it a medical device? Is it a piece of or is it just consumer software? That's a fairly kind of detailed analysis. And one thing that I can tell you from speaking to or being part of loads of investment rounds is it's not necessarily the thing that the investor is going to be looking at you to have done, because they don't expect that level of real detailed analysis to be done. They just want to see the product. From there, the product can be tweaked, is my understanding, when it comes to seeking to stay on either the right side of the line of is it a device or is it a piece of software instead. I wouldn't be getting tremendously hung up on it just yet. I mean, go ahead and build your product, build the best product you can do, and look at the analysis a little bit later down the road.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so we have a question for Stijn. Is privacy preserving tech, i.e. federated learning, differential privacy, etc., going to be a de facto approach for building and deploying production grade applications? How soon do you think is this approach going to be here by, given that Google has successfully deployed their language models for Gboard? What do you think? And that's for Stijn.
I literally just typed up the answer to that question.
You're on the money then. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and
so but I could still answer it live if you'd like me to.
Well, we're actually running out of time. We've only got 8 minutes, I believe, left. So if you've answered it, fantastic. And for everybody who's writing into us right now, we will personally answer all your queries after the session. So if we've missed anything, we promise that we're going to get back to you guys. So I have a question for Ivan. Ivan, how early do you think these accelerator companies need to start thinking about building marketing or differentiation in marketing and branding into their companies? When should they start?
They start as soon as they start trying to validate the idea. Marketing should be part of the process, because if you bake in the marketing activities from the very start, when you're ready to launch, you know what it works. So simple things like finding the ways to talk about your technology in a way everyone can understand can be a great asset for marketing, but as well if you're looking for investment, training your pitch. And if it also saves times, like if you do it earlier, you avoid the gap in between having your product ready and your marketing efforts to kick in, which can happen a lot if you're trying to go for inbound marketing like SEO, which takes a little bit of time to gain momentum. So I think it needs to be part of the validation process and start generating content and kicking off like efforts like websites and social accounts, telling the story and gaining those skills for when you're ready to scale.
I completely agree. I think sometimes we get drunk on the excitement of the tech, but we need to really go back to basics and get our branding out there, set out our marketing and identify our audience. Okay, guys, so we're almost done. I'll take one more question from Jonathan. If the MVP is built on the Altada platform and the company isn't the winner, is there a way to be able to keep demoning the solution post-accelerator?
I'll grab that, Paula. Guys, it's not built on the Altada platform at all. This is a completely independent. This is your technology, right? Altada is just supporting this effort to give back to the community for developing the AI ecosystem in Ireland. So this is very much an independent creation of your own technology and your own intellectual property. So. the short answer is you can absolutely continue on and post the accelerator with the technology.
Okay, thanks for that, Allan. And okay, guys, so, and one other question, will there be a desk space at Tangent can be used during the accelerator?
So unfortunately, we don't provide desk space right now. We are, Trinity is investing over €1 billion in new innovation campus up in Google land. So we don't have space right now. We run the programmatic elements of the accelerator, so no space currently. In the future possibly, but not for this accelerator.
Okay, and lastly, can you explain how the 3 phases work? Do the 10 to 12 companies chosen get funding, and how is it tiered? Do each of the 3 winners / finalists get the 250k round offer? That was my last question.
Ken, do you have some more information on the grant approach that you've done on previous accelerators that you could share with?
Yeah. So that hasn't been fully figured out just at the moment. We have discretionary spending for companies. If we're all stuck at home working from home, then we have a budget obviously for travel and accommodation that we can relook at and provide to companies. So far, what we're looking at is the first round, and we're probably not going to give companies funding. Then subsequent round, second and third rounding, there's potential funding will be provided. To be finalized though. You're on mute, Paula.
Thanks. All right, guys. So that's it for tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Big thank you to the audience. It was really nice to meet you guys, and we really appreciate all the questions. If you guys need any more information, you can get in contact with me or the gang. We're happy to answer any questions, and I want to wish you all the very best of luck on building your AI solution. So big thank you to all our panelists. Guys, we're going to see you all soon, and I wish you a nice evening. Thanks, everybody.
Paula, thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Stay
Bye-bye.
healthy.
You too, man. Take it easy. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.